So picture, like a sniper rifle. You pull the trigger and, well, someone dies. It's a completely clean line of cause and effect, right?
Right, you pull the trigger, the bullet fires. Simple.
Exactly. But we are looking at this incredible philosophical thriller today by Max and Claude. It's called Wu Wei. And in this book, the weapon isn't a bullet at all. The weapon is ancient Taoist philosophy.
Which is such a wild premise for a thriller.
It really is. So for today's deep dive, our mission is to explore what happens when you smash modern vigilante justice together with the ancient art of doing absolutely nothing. We're going to ask whether it's actually possible to fix a deeply broken system without, just becoming a monster yourself.
Yeah, and we are looking at this shadow network that basically arranges the natural deaths of these completely untouchable, deeply corrupt figures. And the really terrifying part of this whole premise is that there's no crime scene.
Nothing for the police to find.
Right, there is no smoking gun to investigate. You are just watching this seemingly organic unfolding of natural events, driven by an assassin who fundamentally rejects the idea that he's even committing a crime.
And for you listening, whether you're trying to navigate some sprawling corporate bureaucracy or trying to fix a toxic culture at your own workplace, or honestly, just trying to understand how power actually functions in the real world, this story is going to fundamentally challenge how you view cause, effect, and your own actions.
Oh, totally, because it begs the question, what if fighting the current is exactly what's drowning you?
Right. So to understand this, we have to start with the ultimate anti-villain of the story. His name is Marcus Chen. And he is the operative who is actually committing these murders without ever technically taking a direct action.
Yeah, and to really grasp Marcus's methodology, I think we should look at the specific, physiological and psychological mechanics of his targets. So let's take Dr. Raymond Voss.
Okay, the cardiac surgeon.
Exactly. He is this highly corrupt cardiac surgeon who is secretly running a massive fentanyl distribution network, and Voss just dies of a sudden heart attack.
Which makes sense for a stressful job.
Right. Perfectly natural. Then you have Elena Cordova. She's an NGO director, but secretly she's laundering cartel money. And she dies of a stress-induced arrhythmia.
Wow.
And finally, there is Julian Kessler. He's a pharmaceutical executive who's responsible for this aggressive price fixing of insulin. He dies of complete cardiac failure, but it's brought on by overtraining for the Boston Marathon.
And the genius of this thriller, the really shelling part, is that Marcus never touches a single one of these people.
Not once.
He never poisons their coffee.
Right.
He doesn't tamper with their breaks. He simply, he observes their behavioral patterns and then just introduces this microscopic psychological tipping point.
Yeah, the leverage point.
Right. So for the NGO director, Elena Cordova, Marcus discovers that she is deeply, deeply paranoid about keeping her cartel connections separate from her public life. So he just sends a single, very vague email.
From the fake accountant.
Yes. From a fake cartel accountant named Ricardo Salinas. And the email just asks about some minor financial discrepancies. That is literally the entirety of his intervention.
Because the human body is notoriously terrible at distinguishing between physical danger and just a psychological threat.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so Marcus knows that Elena's guilty conscience and her obsessive need for control is going to trigger a massive cortisol spike. So she stops sleeping.
Because she's terrified she's been caught.
Exactly. Her paranoia ramps up her resting heart rate over the course of weeks. And because she already has this underlying undiagnosed vulnerability, the sustained panic literally breaks her heart. So he doesn't kill her. He weaponizes her own biology against her.
Man, that is dark. And he does something incredibly similar with Julian Kessler, right? The insulin executive.
Yeah, the marathon guy.
Right. So Marcus does his research and realizes Kessler is driven by this incredibly toxic, fragile, competitive ego. So Marcus creates a fake profile on a running app under the name Delia Boston.
Which is so clever.
It's so petty, but brilliant. He just starts beating Kessler's times on his regular morning running routes. He just beats him day after day. And Kessler's ego simply cannot handle losing to some anonymous stranger online, so he pushes his body way beyond its physical limits during his marathon training.
Which eventually triggers that fatal cardiac event.
Right. And this brings us to the core philosophy driving the whole text, which is Wu Wei. It's often translated as non-action or effortless action.
But it is so crucial to understand that Wu Wei does not mean just sitting on the couch doing nothing.
Right, not laziness.
No, not at all. It means the absolute absence of the actor. Marcus believes that the human concept of free will is essentially a grammatical error.
Wait, a grammatical error? How so?
Well, because our language requires a subject to perform a verb like I choose or I act, we just assume there's an I driving the bus. Marcus views human consciousness as really nothing more than a post hoc narration of deterministic events.
So it's like he operates as the oxygen in a fire.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Like, the oxygen is absolutely necessary for the combustion to take place, but it isn't the thing actually striking the match. It just exists in the environment. But, I mean, I have to push back on this philosophical framing here.
Okay, go for it.
Setting up the dominoes is still an action. How can Marcus claim non-action when he's deliberately typing out emails to cartel launderers and creating fake running profiles just to exploit someone's ego? I mean, isn't he just dressing up premeditated murder in, like, enlightened spiritual language?
Well, that tension is exactly what makes the book a thriller rather than just a philosophical textbook.
Yeah.
You are looking for the intender, the self that claims authorship of the deed.
Right, the guy pulling the strings.
Exactly. But Marcus would argue that his brain simply recognized a pattern in the world and responded to it. It's the same way a river responds to gravity by flowing downhill.
But a river isn't sending emails.
True. But his point is that the river doesn't choose to erode the rock, right? It just flows. Marcus doesn't experience the moral categories of good and evil. When he sends that email, he views it as just another domino falling, caused by a million prior conditions, like his training, his environment, the target's corruption. He has removed his own ego from the equation entirely. He really considers himself an empty vessel.
Wow. And that emptiness is what makes him so incredibly slippery to catch. Because conventional police work relies on finding a motive. And he doesn't have one.
Exactly. He's just a mirror.
But if Marcus is this unstoppable, empty force of nature, he eventually does collide with an immovable object in the story. And that is Detective Sarah Vance.
Oh, Sarah's amazing.
She really is. She is the one person who manages to spot the statistical anomaly of these 19-plus natural deaths that are all clustering around corrupt figures.
Yeah, she is a brilliant, just dogged detective. But her confrontation with Marcus is fascinating. The text really uses it to demonstrate how traditional virtues like persistence, having a strong moral compass, having a deep sense of identity, can actually become fatal vulnerabilities when you are up against someone who is practicing Wu Wei.
Yeah, because she zeroes in on him. And Marcus realizes very quickly that she's onto his pattern. And they have this incredible moment in a public library.
The eye contact scene.
Yes. Marcus catches her, trailing him, and he gives her this very deliberate 2-second look. It's just enough eye contact to let her know that he knows she's there. And then he just vanishes.
Oof, gone.
But then he sneaks into her apartment later and leaves a copy of the Tao Te Ching on her kitchen table with a specific quote underlined.
The sage stays behind, thus he is ahead.
Exactly. It's so chilling. And Marcus neutralizes her investigation without ever laying a single finger on her.
Because if he killed a police detective, that would be a direct violent action. That would create massive ripples and draw, huge federal attention.
The FBI would be all over it.
Exactly. So instead, he simply weaponizes her own identity against her. He hacks into her laptop and silently alters her case files.
Which is so insidious.
It really is. He adds these completely innocent random deaths, like a retired librarian and a middle school teacher, into her list of supposed assassination victims.
And he also plants browser search history for terms like paranoid delusions and schizophrenia symptoms, right?
Yep. He even spoofs her IP address to make it look like she has been sending anonymous, completely unhinged tips to her own police precinct.
He totally gaslights her. But more importantly, he gaslights the bureaucracy she works for. He uses her obsessive, relentless nature to make the police department think their star detective is having a severe mental breakdown.
Yeah, she is literally forced onto administrative leave because she looks dangerously paranoid to everyone around her.
And the underlying mechanic of this defeat is tied back to the philosophy, right? To verse 11 of the Tao Te Ching.
Exactly. Verse 11 discusses the utility of emptiness. The text uses the analogy of a wheel. So a wheel only works because of the empty hub in the very center.
Right.
That emptiness is what allows the axle to fit and the wheel to actually turn. Or like a cup is only useful because of the empty space inside it.
Because if it's solid, it's just a block of clay.
Right. So Marcus embodies that empty hub. He has no rigid attachments, no ego to defend, no specific identity he needs to uphold, and that makes him infinitely adaptable.
While Sarah is all rigid spokes, she is full to the brim with her identity as a detective. She is full of her desperate need for justice. I think the text literally describes her as a closed fist trying to hold water.
Which is such a great image.
It is, but I struggle with this framing, honestly. Applying this to the real world, like being good at your job, caring about justice, having a strong moral compass, the text seems to frame all of that as a weakness.
I see what you mean.
Are we really supposed to take away the cynical idea that caring about the outcome is a tactical error?
Well, I don't think the text is arguing that caring is a moral failing. It is arguing that fullness, having a highly rigid identity and desperate attachments, makes you predictable.
Oh, okay. Predictability.
Right. In a strategic contest, predictability is the ultimate vulnerability. Sarah's desperate need to solve the case, her need to be the hero who catches the bad guy, that is the exact handle that Marcus grabs onto to steer her right off a cliff. When a rigid object strikes an empty space, the rigid object is the only thing that can break.
So Sarah breaks. She gets sidelined, she goes to mandatory department therapy, and then she has this profound realization. She understands that she cannot catch an invisible, formless man by being a highly visible, loud detective.
She has to become empty, too.
Exactly. She has to adapt her strategy. And this leads to this unholy alliance where Sarah crosses a line she swore she never, ever would. She stops trying to be the righteous investigator and basically becomes an accomplice.
Yeah, to survive and just stay in the game, Sarah learns to perform emptiness. She goes back to her department, fakes a psychological recovery, and purposefully just blends into the background.
He becomes a nobody.
Right. She stops being the star detective and becomes a quiet paper pusher. Not reacting, not pushing for leads, but secretly, she sets up trap for the entire shadow network.
Oh, this part is so good.
She creates a highly detailed, completely fabricated target named Richard Vale. She seeds all these digital breadcrumbs about his supposed corruption just to see if the network responds to the bait.
And Marcus figures out the trap, but he respects her adaptation. He realizes she is actually learning the philosophy, so he offers her a choice. She can walk away forever, or she can join the pattern.
And Sarah counters with this compromise to try and keep her own hands clean. She agrees not to expose the network, but she insists on acting as their external arbiter.
Like a judge.
Exactly. She wants to be the one who reviews and approves the targets, genuinely believing her moral compass will prevent the system from becoming corrupt.
But abstract oversight is easy when it's just a theory. It's when they apply this compromise to a real human being that Sarah's clean conscience immediately shatters.
Oh, yeah. The Catherine Mora hit.
Right, their first joint target is Catherine Mora. She is a corporate executive aggressively marketing a new agricultural pesticide called Verdanil 9. And internal documents prove that Catherine knows the chemical causes severe neurological damage, but she is prioritizing a massive corporate payout over the lives of thousands of farm workers.
So Sarah looks at the dossier and plays this grim numbers game. She does the utilitarian calculus, right? She weighs the life of one corrupt executive against thousands of poisoned farm workers, and she officially approves the hit.
And Marcus goes to work. He engineers this cascading, highly stressful corporate crisis. He leaks specific documents to shareholders to spike Catherine's blood pressure during a pivotal board meeting, inducing a massive stroke.
But the operation doesn't go cleanly.
No, it doesn't.
Right. Catherine Mora doesn't die. She survives the stroke, but she is left severely paralyzed and cognitively impaired. And Sarah is entirely unprepared for the visceral reality of this outcome. She has to watch Catherine's innocent college-age children set up these online medical fundraisers just to care for their mother.
The collateral damage is just devastating.
It's awful. Yet Sarah forces herself to rationalize it by clinging to the fact that the marketing campaign for the pesticide was halted. So she did save those farm workers.
We are essentially watching a masterclass in the degradation of virtue. And the text actually ties this back to verse 38 of the Tao Te Ching. We watch Sarah slide down this terrifying slippery slope.
Yeah, the devolution of morality.
Exactly. She starts the story operating in a natural investigative flow, then she moves to kindness, then down to justice, and finally she descends into morality, which this specific philosophy defines as using force when reality resists your desires.
Wow.
By becoming the arbiter of who lives and dies, Sarah has effectively systematized death.
And it is the ultimate trap of formalizing ethics. The philosophical warning here is that when morality becomes a ritual or a bureaucratic process, it is just the husk of true faith. It's the beginning of chaos.
Because it's detached from reality.
Exactly. Sarah genuinely believes her oversight will keep the shadow network pure. But by turning life and death decisions into a checklist of acceptable collateral damage, they detach entirely from the reality of the suffering they are causing. They are rationalizing horror through spreadsheets and risk projections.
It is a massive systematized version of the trolley problem. But instead of just standing by the tracks and pulling a lever to divert a runaway train away from 5 people and onto one person, Sarah and Marcus are actively building the track.
They're laying the rails.
Right. They're going out into the world and actively choosing who to tie down to the rails.
Hmm?
I mean, once you bureaucratize the trolley problem like this, doesn't it just become state-sanctioned murder disguised as efficiency? Where does the oversight end before you're just playing God?
And that exact question is what finally breaks their foundational logic. They believe they have built this philosophically justified, hyper-efficient machine for fixing the world. But as they prepare for their next target, they hit a brick wall that exposes the fundamental flaw in their entire worldview.
Right. So the next target on Sarah's desk is Dr. Leonard Voss, who, by the way, is no relation to the first Voss.
Just a coincidence.
Yeah. So Leonard Voss is the chief medical officer at a private prison company called Titan Corrections. He is actively, maliciously denying basic medical care to inmates just to cut costs. And this is leading to hundreds of agonizing, entirely preventable deaths. So Sarah reviews the file and initially gives Marcus the green light.
But then Sarah decides to dig a little deeper. She reaches out to an old contact at the Department of Justice, Marcus Chen, to check on a federal investigation into Titan Corrections.
And what does she find?
She discovers the DOJ investigation is completely stalled. The corporation has built legal firewalls absolutely everywhere.
And Sarah realizes something totally chilling. If they kill Leonard Voss right now, Titan Corrections will simply replace him with another identical, cost-cutting executive.
Because the corporation's profit mandate demands it.
Exactly. The inmate deaths will continue unabated. Removing this one individual won't create a leverage point for actual reform at all. It will just swap out a cog in a machine. So she demands a sudden 48-hour pause on the operation.
And this pause triggers a massive internal crisis for Marcus.
Really? The empty vessel gets mad.
Yeah. When Sarah halts the hit, Marcus experiences a surge of ego and anger. The operational setup is flawless, and he wants the satisfaction of executing it. But feeling that anger makes him realize he has developed an attachment to the outcome.
Which goes against everything he believes.
Right. He remembers verse 48 of the text. In the pursuit of the Tao, every day something is dropped. So to regain his emptiness, he forces himself to drop his attachment to being right, and he agrees to the pause.
And during those 48 hours, Marcus does something he has never done in his entire career. He audits himself.
Which is huge for him.
Right. He goes back and reviews the aftermath of all 23 of his past hits. And he comes to this devastating realization. Most of his incredibly clever, perfectly executed murders achieved absolutely zero systemic change.
Nothing changed.
Nothing. The corrupt systems, the cartels, the pharmaceutical boards, the bureaucracies, they just immediately absorbed the shock, replaced the dead executives, and kept grinding along.
It completely shatters his illusion of effectiveness. He realizes his actions weren't preventative, they were entirely retributive.
Just revenge.
Yeah, he was just punishing bad people to balance a moral ledger without actually stopping the underlying harm. They were operating under the incredibly naive assumption that removing a harmful individual removes the harm. But systems are constructed out of incentives, not just people.
It's basically like playing whack-a-mole with a hydra.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. You can chop off the head of a corrupt corporate executive with the most elegant, untraceable philosophical assassination in the world, but the body of the hydra is made of corporate incentive structures and quarterly earnings reports. You can't murder a profit margin.
Precisely. If you do not change the underlying incentives, the system will always regenerate the harm. So Sarah develops a new, highly rigorous 4-point framework for intervention to try and solve this.
What are the 4 points?
Well, first, the target must be truly irreplaceable, not just a cog. Second, the removal must occur at a systemic leverage point where the system is already unstable. Third, alternative legal corrections must be completely unavailable. And fourth, the collateral damage must be proportionate.
So it's an attempt to return to Wu Wei, applying minimal force to let the system correct itself, but on a macro-structural level.
Exactly.
Well, let's wrap up this deep dive's incredible journey. I mean, we started with Marcus, this seemingly supernatural assassin who views himself as an empty force of nature, like a canyon directing water. We move through a psychological cat-and-mouse game between obsession and emptiness with Detective Sarah Vance. And we arrived at this profound, honestly frustrating realization. You simply cannot fix broken systems just by removing the people inside them.
Because treating the symptom never cures the disease. If the soil is toxic, pulling up one weed just makes room for another one to grow right in its place.
Right, and I want you, listening to this, to look at the systems in your own life. Think about your workplace, your industry, your local government. When things go wrong, are you trying to solve deep structural problems by blaming and removing specific individuals while completely ignoring the incentives that drive those individuals' behavior in the first place?
We love a villain because a villain can be defeated. It's much harder to acknowledge that the system itself is what's generating the villainy.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with a final thought, building on Sarah's private journal from the end of the book. As she weighed the heavy cost of her choices, the paralyzed executives, the endless bureaucracy of death, she wrote, "I hope this haunts me."
That line gives me chills.
Me too. Because losing that haunted feeling, becoming comfortable with the cold calculus of collateral damage, means she has truly become a monster. But take that a step further and look at the world we are building right now.
Right, with technology.
Yes. Think about AI algorithms, corporate restructuring boards, and automated risk assessment software. We are actively building systems today that make cold, calculated decisions about human livelihoods, healthcare, and criminal justice without any single person ever pulling a trigger.
That is terrifyingly true.
If a completely empty, emotionless algorithm ruins a life because of a statistical optimization, who do you blame? The programmer? The CEO who bought the software? Or is that just modern-day Wu Wei at work, a system shaping itself to the terrain, destroying lives with the effortless, terrifying absence of an actor? In a world where the clean line of cause and effect is dissolving into code and bureaucracy, maybe the only thing keeping us human is the weight of the actions we actually choose to take ownership of.